My royal sister and I were both negotiating marriage alliances with the Beastman tribes. In our past life, my elder sister chose first and wed the elegant serpent prince, while I was left to marry the coarse and unsightly wolf prince. But later, the beautiful serpent prince perished tragically, struck by lightning during a failed shapeshifting attempt due to his frail constitution. My sister was reduced to a shared wife among the serpent princes, stripped of all dignity. Yet the wolf prince I chose seized destiny, transforming ahead of time into a majestic alpha, reborn as the rightful heir to the wolf throne. Thus I became the most revered woman of the wolfkin. The beast folk whisper how the wolf king treasures me. Why else would our children come in such swift succession? When I opened my eyes again, my elder sister and I had returned to the day of the marriage negotiations. This time, to everyone's surprise, she chose the hideously ugly wolf prince. She looked at me with smug satisfaction, her eyes brimming with ambition. That's when I realized, my sister had been reborn just like me. This couldn't be more perfect. I lowered my head, feigning dejection to conceal the thrill and tremors within. As the princess of the Spirit Fox clan, I witnessed our defeat in the territorial war against the Orcish tribes. The emperor decreed that my elder sister and I would be sent as political brides to the orcs to preserve our clan's strength. Now in the Grand Hall, just as in our past life, our father bids us choose our future husbands. The holographic projector from the orc tribes clearly displayed the regal serpent prince and the grotesque wolf prince. Still lost in memories of my past life, my elder sister blurted out impatiently, "Father, I'll choose this fierce-looking wolf prince. Let's spare my sister from dealing with such terrifying beast folk," though her expression feigned concern. The glint in her eyes betrayed a predator's certainty. Seeing this, I knew, like me, my sister had been reborn. In our previous life, she'd chosen the serpent prince. That seemingly noble and powerful heir turned out to be physically frail, dying horribly during metamorphosis when lightning struck. My sister became a plaything for the remaining serpent princes, a fate worse than death. The wolf prince I married unexpectedly gained a divine opportunity. Transforming prematurely into a majestic alpha wolf and successfully ascending as the pack's leader, I was honored as the wolf queen, bearing 8 heirs in succession and enjoying unparalleled favor for a time. Thus in this lifetime, she defied expectations by choosing the very wolf prince she'd once despised. Hearing her wise and noble words, the emperor nodded approvingly before turning his gaze to me. My elder sister's constant bullying forced me to maintain a fragile facade in public. At this moment, I feigned indecisiveness, bowing my head to thank her for her generosity. Yet in solitude, I trembled with exhilaration. As she passed by, my sister whispered just loud enough for my ears, "Dear sister, the serpent men, well, prize their women. When you go there, your fortune awaits." With a mysterious smile, she walked away from my dazed gaze. Little did she know, I was secretly overjoyed. Days later, Thorn the serpent prince and Garen the wolf prince arrived for the bridal procession, still in half-human forms with bestial lower bodies, their transformation incomplete. The serpent prince stood tall with ethereal beauty, his eyes radiating aristocratic pride. His shimmering silver serpentine lower body gleamed like fish scales, creating an unexpectedly magnificent sight. He acknowledged my choice with a slight nod. Tucking my fox tail away, I obediently approached him. His eyes gleamed with approval as he unexpectedly reached out to stroke my fur. The gentle caress sent pleasurable shivers through every fiber of my being, making me instinctively narrow my eyes in contentment. Meanwhile, the wolf prince enthusiastically hoisted my elder sister onto his shoulders, howling with excitement. In my past life, his brutish behavior had startled me too, but my naturally docile nature unexpectedly won his favor. My sister turned ashen, barely swallowing a curse before forcing a grotesquely strained smile onto her face. The wolf prince carried her all the way to the carriage like that. The sight had me stifling laughter. Suddenly, the serpent prince's teasing voice came from above. "Little fox, what's so amusing? Don't tell me you want me to carry you too." His smile was as warm as sunlight melting winter frost, leaving me utterly spellbound. As I stood dazed, a silver streak flashed before my eyes, coiling around my waist with effortless grace before pulling me straight into his embrace. The chill of his body and the pounding of his heartbeat against me sent heat rushing to my cheeks. I instinctively buried my face in his chest as his deep chuckle vibrated through me, making my pulse race. How could my elder sister think the serpent prince was arrogant in her past life? Was she out of her mind? This is clearly my favorite domineering CEO type. My heart's fluttering so hard I'm getting lightheaded. In this dazed state, I let him carry me into the carriage. The carriage was lined with thick fur rugs. As I lay on them, I realized the color oddly matched my tail. Seems my husband has quite a fondness for fluffy things. That's definitely a good sign. I'm already daydreaming about married life. Thorn curled his tail into a coil and settled on the blanket the moment he entered the carriage. He seemed particularly sensitive to the cold, his body trembling slightly. Gazing at his serene, handsome face, I felt an inexplicable surge of tenderness. Slowly, I inched closer and wrapped him in my fur for warmth. We spirit foxes possess innate healing abilities. Simply by staying near us, other beast folk gradually regain spiritual energy and experience profound inner peace. True enough, Thorn completely relaxed. I could feel his entire body nestling against mine, and within moments, he'd fallen into a deep slumber. Bored out of my mind, I started counting his serpentine scales for amusement, only to doze off mid-count. When I came to, I found our bodies tangled in an unmistakably intimate embrace. Flustered, I tried to pull away only to meet Thorn's smoldering gaze. I shrank back in alarm, and he drew a sharp breath before finally untangling himself from me. "Little vixen, you do well not to tempt me. I have no intention of touching you, yet." The implication behind his words couldn't have been clearer. Blushing like a ripe apple, I sat as far from him as possible. Seeing my pitiful expression, he chuckled softly and beckoned helplessly. "Come here, I'm not scolding you, I'm protecting you, silly." At his words, I peered up at him with wide, timid eyes before mustering the courage to inch closer. They say dual cultivation greatly enhances spiritual power. Since I've resolved to stand by him through thick and thin this lifetime, retreating isn't an option. Too unexpectedly, he didn't hold me this time. Instead, he let me rest comfortably against his waist while gently stroking my fur. His rhythmic petting felt like a massage, so soothing that I instinctively closed my eyes in contentment. I heard him murmur by my ear, "Strange, when I groom your fur, I feel more energetic and refreshed. Could this be the healing power of your spirit fox lineage?" As I listened to his words, a doubt crept into my mind. Could it be that in our past lives, my sister's failure to enhance his spiritual power led to his failed transformation? If that's the case, it all makes sense now. The Beastman tribe agreed to end the conflict through marriage alliance because they valued our spirit fox clan's unique bloodline. Without my sister's help, Thorn stood no chance against the lightning strike. Just then, the carriage came to an abrupt halt. The guards and maids outside announced it was time for the meal, and only then did I realize I was getting hungry. Casting an eager glance at Thorn, he scoffed, as if amused by my lack of restraint, yet promptly gave the order while continuing to stroke my fur. "Prepare some of our signature dishes for the crown princess. Let her savor something special." The food arrived swiftly. Before me lay a freshly roasted rabbit, glistening with oil and wafting an irresistible aroma. I couldn't help but inhale deeply. Instantly enchanted, Thorn looked at me with amused affection, stepping forward to wipe my furry paws clean with a cloth before surprisingly slipping a pair of sanitary gloves onto them. "Look at you, little greedy kitten. Do they starve you at home?" He'd hit the nail on the head. Father had been rationing us to just a few wild berries daily to ensure we'd look our best when receiving Thorn and Garen. I watched dumbly as he cleaned my paws, letting out a soft while warmth blossomed in my chest. A meticulous and hygienic man, though a bit domineering, but I adore him. After finishing everything, he said gently, "Go ahead and eat." I swallowed hard and dug in eagerly. Having gone half a day without food, I was genuinely starving and abandoned all table manners. Only after finishing did I realize he hadn't eaten. When I asked, he replied indifferently that he wasn't feeling well and would skip it. The memory of him curled up in distress tugged at my heart, so I approached and enveloped him in my fox fur mantle, soft as a blanket. His body tensed momentarily, uncertain of my intentions, but soon he relaxed, yielding as I nestled against him in comfortable embrace. "You're my husband now, let me heal you." My voice, tinged with tenderness, whispered by his ear. He fell silent, yet I could sense something subtly shifting between us, and so I held him close, drifting into a peaceful sleep. Still some distance from the orc settlement, our carriage traveled alongside the crown princess's. The atmosphere around her carriage felt worlds apart from ours. Those strange noises kept coming, Garen and the princess's voices, making Thorn and me extremely uncomfortable. While the carriage was at rest, Thorn and I stepped out for fresh air. Then those odd sounds came from the princess's carriage again. I stole a glance at him and saw his ears turning an uncontrollable shade of red. But he immediately turned to me, his face flushed unnaturally, and feigned anger, saying, "Don't eavesdrop, you're too young for this." Watching his blustering act, I lowered my head to hide a smirk. Moments later, the princess was carried out over Garen's shoulder, apparently caught off guard by our presence. Thorn and I witnessed a fleeting blush cross her face, only for it to morph into inexplicable smugness when our eyes met. I studied her discreetly, feigning naive bewilderment. After setting her down, Garen immediately left to hunt. Wolves must consume fresh prey before achieving their humanoid forms. Thorn whispered in my ear about where he was going, gave my head an affectionate pat, and left. My elder sister, who'd witnessed our intimacy, approached me with jealousy burning in her eyes. "You and the Serpent Prince seem quite close, yet there's still some distance between you, unlike me and the Wolf Prince." She trailed off as if embarrassed. Cheeks flushing crimson while undisguised desire still smoldered in her gaze, she assumed I'd envy her early intimacy with the wolf prince, believing it would secure her status when she joined the werewolf clan. Little did she know an endless prison awaited her in the days to come. I smirked inwardly but maintained an innocent facade, offering sincere congratulations with wide-eyed sincerity. How wonderful that you and the prince get along so well. May you soon be blessed with a royal heir. At my words, her cheeks flushed deeper, her eyes heavy with postcoital languor. With a sidelong glance, she retreated into the carriage. Seemed she couldn't be bothered with me anymore. Watching her retreating figure, memories came flooding back. Typical, she's still as arrogant as ever. Pride comes before a fall, as they say. The imperial princess was born into nobility. Her mother hailed from the White Feather clan, one of the 4 great families of the Spirit Fox tribe. Their favored status at court bred her haughty, self-important nature. My birth mother was merely a lowly palace maid who caught the emperor's drunken fancy one night, and thus I was conceived. The emperor was a notorious womanizer who forgot my mother the moment he left her bed. We lived in a cramped side courtyard, and I remember her perpetually leaning against the doorway, waiting in vain for that heartless man to glance her way again. She developed chronic ailments from childbirth and wasted away from constant melancholy. Within a few years she fell gravely ill, leaving me to care for her while scavenging for food. During the hardest times, we'd get only scraps of meat every other day. By age 5 I remained scrawny and sickly looking, with patchy hair that made me appear quite wretched. All the imperial princesses and princes bullied me, with the eldest princess being the worst. Her maternal family held such power that no one dared oppose her. These years, I've survived solely by playing the fool. I've long abandoned any hope or affection for that royal family. This political marriage is my farewell. 7 days later, we arrived within the borders of the Beastman tribes. The Orc tribe was formed through an alliance of multiple races, with its chieftain determined by a quadrennial combat tournament, a system renowned for its fairness. The current ruler is the Serpent King, Thorn's father, which grants Thorn higher status than even the Wolf Prince. No sooner had we alighted from the carriage than the honor guard arrived to greet us. Magnificently attired serpent clansmen stood tall and handsome in their human forms, flanking an exquisitely crafted golden carriage that shimmered with dazzling brilliance. My eyes lit up with joy as I leapt at Thorn. He affectionately stroked my fur before coiling his tail around me, carrying me toward the carriage. In my past life when we visited the Beastkin tribe, my elder sister somehow had a falling out with Thorn. Neither would back down, so Thorn simply abandoned her and returned to the imperial capital alone. I never got the chance to witness such extravagant splendor. I didn't need to turn around to know my sister's face must be contorted with rage. The sound of her petulant argument with the Wolf Prince told me everything. Husband, why aren't our clansmen here to greet us? Look how comfortable their carriage is. As the elder sister, I can't believe my younger sister's entourage outshines mine. Garen's impatient roar cut through the air. Shut your mouth. I'm your man. You take what I give you without complaint. Who do you think you are, making demands? Spoiled brat. I'd seen that furious lip before. In my past life, I'd always been obedient, yet even so, I'd suffered plenty of his punishments. The pampered crown princess would never tolerate his temper. Those two are bound to clash constantly. Best of luck to her highness, I thought with mischievous amusement. Thorn's cool voice came from above me. Don't be nervous when meeting his majesty later. He may seem stern, but just stay close to me. My thoughts scattered as I met Thorn's gaze. Though his tone matched his icy demeanor, genuine concern shone in his eyes. I felt utterly blessed in this lifetime. Nodding involuntarily as I nestled deeper into his embrace, he chuckled softly. A quarter hour later, we entered the palace. The Serpent King exuded majesty, his features bearing striking resemblance to Thorn's. His eyes flickered with displeasure upon noticing my timid presence beside him. Seeing how Thorn shielded me, I swallowed my words in the end. The king merely bestowed some gold and jewels before dismissing us. As for my elder sister, she wasn't even granted an audience, like my past self. She had to wait outside the hall while Garen alone paid his brief respects to the Serpent King. My sister wore a puzzled expression for the first time as she watched Thorn and me together. In her past life, she'd been too busy throwing princess tantrums to ever properly interact with Thorn. In her memory, Thorn was cold and arrogant, showing no tenderness toward women, yet now, his natural protectiveness toward me made the princess wonder if fate had rewritten many things in this life. But she had crossed the point of no return, left with no choice but to follow the brutish Garen back to the Wolf Clan, resentment simmering in her heart. The Serpent Tribe's territory lay in the Green Mountains, hundreds of miles from the royal capital. After bidding farewell to the Serpent King, Thorn took me back to his own stronghold. The Emerald Mountains exuded tranquility, with a faint sweetness lingering in the forest air. I greedily inhaled the crisp atmosphere. My face glowing with rapture, Thorn approached quietly to keep me company. His hands gently stroked my fur from head to tail, and I sensed an ethereal energy flowing between us, making my body feel weightless. I nestled softly against Thorn's chest, wrapping my fuzzy paws around him. He didn't mind at all, merely letting out an amused chuckle above my head. That infuriating man, always so tsundere, but I love it, he. 2 snake tribe maidens passed by, spotting us before giggling shyly behind their hands, their eyes brimming with kindness and warmth. I adore the climate here. The spirit foxlands are too arid for such sensations, and my past life among the valley-dwelling wolf tribe felt cramped and stifling. Nothing like this comfort. Coming here, it's like I've truly come alive. And so, I settled down in Green Mountain with Thorn. The Serpent clan members treated me with kindness. They lived in harmony, all working together to build their home. This was exactly the kind of atmosphere I loved. It made me feel completely at ease. Such warmth didn't exist among the wolves. Their society revered violence and authority, where every alpha was chosen through combat. Only the strongest could lead the pack. Bloodshed and sacrifice were inevitable. I tried to dissuade the Wolf King, but he couldn't care less. With my elder sister's haughty temperament, she'd surely regret going. She mistook my numerous past births as proof of the Wolf King's affection. Little did she know it was merely his way of spreading his lineage and consolidating power. Constant childbirth drained me completely. My rapid aging soon made me lose all appeal to the Wolf King. The only reason he kept me as his queen was because our union granted him spiritual power. I never want to relive that unsettling life again. My relationship with Thorn is warm and uncomplicated. He manages all affairs of Green Mountain while maintaining grueling cultivation routines. To earn the Serpent clan's genuine allegiance, he must complete his metamorphosis before turning 18, yet every day, he would still set aside 2 hours to devote himself entirely to my company. At high noon, we'd often venture into the mountain woods to find a sunlit boulder where dappled light filtered through the leaves. The sun-warmed stone became our napping spot, dry and cozy. He meticulously grew my fur, his palms soothing every strand of my fox pelt from head to tail, while I'd channel spiritual energy to him through our shared warmth. Before we knew it, a whole year had slipped by. Thorn and I underwent profound transformations as our spiritual energies became intertwined. Unlike his frail and feeble past life, he grew stronger by the day, his skin glowing with vitality. His spiritual energy increased steadily, nearing the threshold of physical transformation. Meanwhile, Thorn pampered me into a rosy, delicate state. My fur grew silkier and more lustrous, radiating an ethereal aura, yet Thorn refused to consummate our union, insisting I was still too young to withstand the intense spiritual exchange. My dependence on him deepened. Each morning, I'd cling to him before letting him attend to official duties. He'd chuckle and call me his clingy little fox, but never pushed me away. The blissful days gradually blurred my memories and hatred. I'd nearly forgotten the spirit fox clansmen who tormented me in my past life, including my imperial sister, but an unforeseen incident shattered this tranquility. That morning, as Thorn and I finished breakfast, an urgent missive arrived from the royal city. His face paled upon reading it, and in his panic, he shattered a porcelain plate. The letter revealed the Serpent King was fatally poisoned, commanding Thorn to complete his metamorphosis within a month, for upon the king's death, the Beastkin tribes would elect a new leader, and unshaped shifters were barred from succession. When the time comes, the Serpent clan, as the former ruling race, will face severe suppression, but if Thorn succeeds in his metamorphosis, he can assume the Serpent King's leadership until the next election. I watched Thorn with growing dread. His current spiritual energy is insufficient for transformation. If he forces it, he'll likely meet the same gruesome fate as in his past life, yet as a son, he has no choice but to stake everything on this desperate attempt. My mind raced, considering every possible solution. Suddenly, inspiration struck. I grabbed Thorn's arm excitedly and said, "Darling, let's undergo the metamorphosis tribulation together. That way I can share the lightning strikes with you, and you won't be in danger." Thorn instinctively objected. "Absolutely not, you're too young. Forced metamorphosis would prevent you from achieving your ideal form." Putting on a pitiful face, I asked, "What if I end up transforming into some hideous creature? You wouldn't reject me then, would you?" He let out an exasperated laugh, ruffling my hair as he scolded. "What nonsense are you spouting? When have I ever looked down on you? Besides, you're not exactly a beauty queen right now either." I froze in disbelief before glaring at him indignantly. Only then did he realize his blunder, sticking out his tongue in a sheepish gesture before showering me with earnest apologies. Seeing this rare, childlike side of him eased the tension in my chest. Truth be told, I'd been terrified the news might crush his spirit completely. After my little outburst, he did regain some confidence, meeting my earnest gaze. He finally relented and agreed to my proposal. We immediately threw ourselves into preparations for the transformation ceremony. First, we selected the most spiritually charged peak in the Green Mountains as the site, and had the Serpent Elders erect the highest grade defensive formation currently available. Throughout the month, we intensified our cultivation, daily immersing ourselves in the mountain forests to absorb spiritual energy while maintaining a strict meditation regimen. On the eve of the transformation, Thorn and I sat in the courtyard beneath the full moon, listening to mountain winds rustle through the trees as the luminous orb watched over us in silent vigil. I nestled against Thorn, gently combing through the stray hairs at his temple with my claws. His chiseled profile looked exquisitely ethereal under the moonlight, radiating an otherworldly beauty. The uncertainty of tomorrow's life or death struggle sent a pang through my heart. It wasn't my own fate I mourned, but the precious moments I'd shared with Thorn. Since my mother's passing, I'd long stopped clinging to this world. This past year living among the Serpent Clan had been the happiest time I could remember. Overcome by sudden emotion, I acted on impulse, boldly leaning in to brush Thorn's cheek, startling him from his reverie. A blush instantly spread across his face as he gazed at me helplessly, his words stumbling into incoherence. You, burying my burning face in his chest. I murmured shyly, "Husband, we've been married so long, yet never. If something happens tomorrow, I might never get this chance again. The moonlight is so beautiful tonight, let me give myself to you, please." I waited in bashful silence for his answer. Just as I feared rejection, he suddenly swept me into his arms and carried me toward the bed. At that moment, the breeze brushed against my cheek with a tingling sensation that traveled all the way from my skin to my heart. Yet for an entire year, we fell asleep in each other's arms every night. Thorn had restrained himself for my sake all that time. That night, he finally stopped holding back. The next morning, I woke to the dawnlight and reached for the space beside me, only to find it empty. I got out of bed to look for Thorn, completely unaware of the change in myself. He was practicing his morning meditation in the courtyard. When I opened the door, I saw him bathed in the soft glow of dawn, his body radiating a translucent pearlescence more dazzling than ever. His cheeks were flushed, and he seemed enveloped in a luminous aura. I stood there transfixed until his voice calling my name snapped me out of my daze. His eyes lit up with wonder when he saw me, murmuring, "Little fox, you're breathtaking today. Your fur, it's turned pink." I finally looked down at myself and let out a joyful roar. This was my absolute favorite color. Thorn gazed at me adoringly as he approached, asking, "Ready, my beautiful princess?" My eyes sparkled as I nodded eagerly, already imagining my transformed appearance. He flashed that same radiant smile, just like the first time he'd ever smiled at me. When Thorn and I arrived at Spirit Peak, the Serpent Elders and their kin were already waiting for us. Their eyes held concern and anticipation, yet also the resolve of those prepared to die. The Beast King guarding the formation faced the same mortal peril as us, but today we shared both purpose and conviction. I clenched my fist, steeling myself. Thorn guided me into the formation circle, coiling his body at the focal point while I sat encircling him, our hands clasped tightly as our bodies formed a shared energy field. The clan members assumed their designated positions with practiced precision. Within moments, we slipped into deep meditation as naturally as our daily cultivation rituals. Consciousness gradually settled as vital currents flowed through my meridians. A growing warmth spread through my body while my senses sharpened acutely. Even our synchronized breathing became distinctly audible. Moments later, I sensed foreign energies swirling around me, crashing through my body before seamlessly merging with my own essence. This spiritual exchange lasted a quarter hour until distant thunder rumbled across the heavens, its primordial roar vibrating through our trembling bodies. Thorn squeezed my hand tightly, seeking to shoulder more of the lightning's wrath for me. I returned his grasp and whispered softly, "My love, we shall prevail. You mustn't lose heart." The moment I finished speaking, a crushing force descended from the sky. My body instantly became paralyzed as the air around us congealed. The rumbling grew steadily louder until a thunderclap exploded directly above our heads. My ears went deaf instantly, as if all my senses had been stripped away. Consciousness began slipping from me, yet I clung to one imperative: I mustn't let go of Thorn's hand. Thorn's grip on my hand was vice-like, his eyes squeezed shut with deep furrows between his brows. Beads of sweat rolled down his forehead as I focused my entire being, channeling every ounce of spiritual energy to support him. My mind became a turbulent storm of fragmented images, each more unsettling than the last. I saw my mother clutching my hand as she lay dying, her sorrowful gaze fixed on me as if longing to speak, yet she drew her last breath with those words forever unspoken. I witnessed the Emperor's perpetual silence and indifference toward me, yet when he turned to my elder sister, his eyes would soften with paternal warmth. I remember my sister leading a group of palace maids and eunuchs to shove me to the ground. screaming that I was an unwanted bastard. I still recall those living death days in the wolf tribe, how the wolf king's eyes burned with nothing but lust and possession whenever they fell upon me. My head was splitting with pain, my body burning as if on fire, and uncontrollable heat surging wildly through my veins, for, just as I felt I couldn't hold on any longer, Thorn's voice whispered in my ear, "Little fox, steady your mind. Don't let those visions shake you. Endure this, and we succeed." My consciousness suddenly cleared. Gathering my focus, I braced against the lightning strike. Just as the most crushing bolt descended, my body shattered like glass, gone numb beyond feeling, even Thorn's presence fading from my awareness. But soon, a surge of chi erupted from within, flooding every limb with scorching energy. It coursed through my meridians like liquid fire before dissolving into a soothing warmth, my entire being absorbed. Suddenly, gasps erupted around me, with great effort. I wrestled my consciousness free and opened my eyes. The sight before me stunned me. The defensive formation had dissipated. The lightning-stricken vegetation on the mountain slopes was rapidly regenerating, while an overwhelming spiritual energy saturated every inch of the land. Thorn before me had fully assumed human form. His silver tail had vanished, replaced by a lustrous silver brocade robe that radiated vibrant vitality. His eyes fluttered open, and upon seeing me, he rushed forward in joy, crushing me in an embrace. "Thank the heavens," he whispered against my ear, voice thick with emotion. "We made it, little fox. I was so afraid I'd never see you again." When he seemed calmer, I rushed to the riverside in excitement, eager to see my transformed appearance. The rippling water reflected a lovely maiden in pink robes with delicate features. I gazed at my reflection in delighted wonder, admiring myself by the shore for the longest time, seeing my joy. Thorn and the clansfolk all broke into warm laughter. That day, the entire mountainside was filled with pure happiness and bliss, but joy was fleeting, for we soon faced a grim reality. The Serpent King was likely dying. Thorn and I swiftly packed our belongings and set off for the capital. This time we pushed the caravan to move faster, reaching the capital in 3 days. When I saw the Serpent King again, he was already like a frail old man on the brink of death. Each labored word took him ages to utter. Thorn knelt by his father's bedside, shedding tears of sorrow for the first time. I didn't know what to say, so I simply stayed by his side in silence. The dying Serpent King clung to life just long enough to see his son, closing his eyes for good after settling his final affairs. News of the Orc chieftain's death spread like wildfire through the clans. Some restless tribes that had been plotting rebellion abandoned their schemes upon hearing Thorn had achieved metamorphosis and ascended to a higher realm. 3 days later, the Serpent King was laid to rest, and Thorn rightfully claimed the throne as the new leader of the Orc tribes. I became the Serpent Clan's queen, residing with him in the imperial capital, but things weren't so harmonious with the elder princess. Intermittent news came from the Wolf clan. For some reason, Garen didn't undergo early transformation in this life as he had in his previous incarnation, and the Imperial sister failed to bear his child successfully. Rumor has it that after becoming pregnant, the Imperial sister suffered extreme reactions. She couldn't keep food down and developed strange rashes. Convinced the child was ill-omened, she secretly took abortifacients and miscarried. Enraged upon learning this, Garen never approached the Imperial sister again, instead favoring concubines from other wolf clans. The Imperial sister should have used the Spirit Fox clan's innate calming powers to assist Garen's early transformation, but their estrangement prevented his successful metamorphosis. Accustomed to the primal ferocity of her wolf-blooded nature, the princess grew estranged from her husband. Lust took root in her heart, leading to illicit trysts with her personal guards. When Garen discovered this betrayal, his disgust knew no bounds. He imprisoned the princess with her lover, forcing them to couple endlessly without contraceptives. The princess died in childbirth after bearing several children in succession, though all this came to pass many years hence. By then, I already had my own child, and our little family of 3 lived in perfect harmony, leaving all past grievances behind. Thorn and I raised 6 children together, 5 sons and just 1 precious daughter. Thorn often said our daughter took after me most, claiming I'd been just as charming and vivacious in my youth. He adored sewing countless pretty dresses for her, and watching our little girl twirl beneath the trees fulfilled his fondest wish. All my sons grew up healthy, wise, upright, and kind-hearted. The eldest was crowned heir to the Serpent clan at age 10, while the other 4 each developed remarkable talents. The second excelled in martial arts, the third in arcane arts, and the fourth in magical artifacts. I've grown increasingly indolent over time, while Thorn has become quite the chatterbox, a far cry from his aloof demeanor in younger days. He's always whispering reminders in my ear. Ever since arranging marriages for our sons, I've developed this peculiar forgetfulness. Important matters slip my mind the moment I think of them. Thorn summoned a renowned witch doctor who diagnosed me. The lightning tribulation years ago damaged my spiritual core, causing me to age faster than ordinary folk. Hearing this didn't upset me much, but Thorn's eyes turned red. He gripped my hand tightly, as if afraid I'd vanish the next second. Why does he get sillier with age? Foxes have 9 lives, lose 1, still got 8 to go. But at that thought, I suddenly realized I'd forgotten something crucial. When a fox spirit bears children, she loses her 9 lives. They're divided among her offspring. Thorn sobbed like a child against my chest, and all I could do was stroke his back over and over. The shaman said I had but a year left to live. The end. Story 2. My junior sister and I simultaneously chose to form spirit beast contracts. My black serpent successfully ascended into a dragon, making me the first cultivator in our sect to possess a draconic spirit companion, but her white fox spirit beast perished during the metamorphosis stage, and though her cultivation remained incomplete, inner demons took root when I tried helping her overcome these demons. She ambushed me, running me through with her sword. Reborn at the Covenant ceremony, my junior sister rushed to claim the black serpent as her spirit beast. I congratulated her on her discerning choice. This lifetime, it's her turn to become the serpent's cultivation blood bag. Storm, step forward. My chest tightened painfully when I heard my name called. Nearly making me stumble, Storm steadied me with a grin, saying, "The spirit beast selections got you so excited you're tripping, senior sister." I wrenched my arm from Storm's grasp. This was the very hand that had killed me. Whirling around, I found myself standing in our sex training grounds. The sight of 2 figures, one dark, one light, confirmed it. I'd been reborn during the bonding ceremony. Our master instructed Storm and me to choose spirit beasts for bonding. One was an unremarkable black serpent, the other a wounded white fox. In our past life, Storm believed the injured fox would at least become more majestic than the black snake, which could only evolve into a mere water serpent at best. So Storm claimed the fox, leaving me to bond with the leftover black snake. Unexpectedly, the fox's wounds never healed. It died shortly after. Meanwhile, my black serpent cultivated at an astonishing pace, transforming into a rare obsidian dragon, making me the first disciple in our sect to form a pact with dragonkind. Storm, unwilling to accept defeat, sought other spirit beasts, yet after her first companion's gruesome death, weaker creatures feared bonding with her, while her limited power barred access to worthy stronger ones. Without a spirit beast's guidance and driven by reckless ambition, Storm's cultivation backfired, plunging her into demonic chi deviation. When our master sent me to purge her inner demons, Storm ambushed and murdered me instead. Senior sister, how could one wrong choice lead to such vastly different fates for us? I refused to accept this, still lost in memories of my past life. Storm spoke first. Master, this disciple wishes to form a spirit contract with that black serpent. I looked up at Storm, who flashed me a triumphant smirk and whispered, "Senior sister, this time I've seized the advantage." So she'd been reborn too. I feigned ignorance and congratulated her on finding a spirit beast that caught her fancy. The black serpent Cyrus lay limp in Storm's palms, looking utterly exhausted. In our past life, it was precisely this feeble appearance that made Storm misjudge him. Before my death in the previous life, I only saw Cyrus descending amidst howling storms, though I never witnessed what followed, given his vicious nature. He surely painted the land red with blood. This time around, I'm grateful Storm claimed him first, sparing me from forming a contract with Cyrus and becoming mere fuel for his draconic ascension. Storm had no idea what awaited her. Glancing at the motionless white fox, she remarked, "Senior sister, your fox doesn't look well. You'd better take good care of it. If it dies, you'll lose your spirit beast." I stepped forward to pick up the fox, but it unexpectedly scratched my hand, drawing blood instantly. Seeing this, Storm grew even more smug. Feigning concern, she asked, "Master, what should we do if senior sister's spirit beast rejects her?" When a spirit beast refuses to acknowledge its master, it usually means the cultivator lacks sufficient strength. Even the beast finds them unworthy. For practitioners, this is a humiliating disgrace. In her past life, Storm also suffered a swipe from the white fox, which humiliated her before the entire sect. She locked the fox in a cage, denying it food, water, or medical treatment, claiming she'd break its pride, yet its wounds festered, and within a month, the creature perished. My master watched me with concern, but I shrugged it off. Ignoring the fox's struggles, I grabbed it by the scruff and hauled it up. The fox thrashed in fury before swiftly losing consciousness. I laid the white fox on the bed, its tail broken halfway with the wound already festering. As I cleaned its wound, it suddenly woke up and instinctively swiped at me with its claws before understanding the situation. After I bandaged its wound while holding it down, it immediately dragged its tail to huddle in the bed corner, growling at me with visible fury. Seeing its reaction, I had no choice but to leave the room to give it space. I sat meditating in the courtyard, pondering what course to take. In my past life, Cyrus served as my spirit beast, a glamorous facade, While he successfully transformed into a dragon, my cultivation never progressed. This lifetime's spirit beast arrived wounded. Healing him would consume precious time, and his rejection of me makes rapid cultivation progress through our bond impossible. As dawn's first light touched the earth, I resolved to rely solely on my own relentless effort. As I pushed the door open, the white fox curled up on the bed instantly startled awake, eyeing me warily, too. Seeing fresh blood seeping from his tail wound, I forced several precious medicinal pills down his throat despite his struggles. I reassured him, I understand you never wanted this bond. Once you've recovered, we'll break the contract and you'll be free to go. The fox whimpered skeptically, his distrustful whines dripping with stubborn defiance. Can't you speak properly? I can't make sense of your gibberish. The white fox glared at me with deeply offended eyes, refusing to even make a sound. Storm was also there when I went to see my master. I noticed the tall, expressionless man beside her. Cyrus had already completed his transformation. He gave me a fleeting glance, his eyes cold and distant. I kept telling myself, he doesn't remember me, he's no longer my spirit beast, and he can't hurt me anymore. The master and fellow disciples praised Storm's prowess, saying his bond with Cyrus was a match made in heaven. Beaming with pride, Storm nestled against Cyrus and taunted, "Senior sister. My spirit beast has mastered transformation. Where's your white fox? Don't tell me it failed its metamorphosis, or worse, that you carelessly let it die first." The master reassured me, "Your spirit beast may be injured now, but once healed, it'll surely aid your cultivation. A slight delay in progress means nothing," I said to my master. Disciple wishes to study the Heart Sutra. My declaration shocked everyone, my master, Storm, even Cyrus. Cultivating the Heart Sutra requires no spirit beast assistance, but the process is grueling and time-consuming. Practitioners with spirit beasts would never choose this method. I explained to my master that the white fox's injuries were severe. It couldn't aid my cultivation for at least a year or two. Proud and willful even while wounded, it had scratched me. Once healed, it would never submit willingly. Perhaps I should face reality sooner, cultivate the Heart Sutra alone, then sever our contract once his wounds heal. Storm sneered, "Senior sister, are you admitting you can't even tame a half-dead fox?" Storm clung to Cyrus's arm, her gaze brimming with provocation and smugness. Her gloating made it clear she'd lost all reason. She completely missed how Cyrus's eyes lacked the trusting devotion other spirit beasts showed. Just before leaving, Cyrus suddenly turned and gave me a lingering glance. I couldn't fathom why he looked at me that way, so I pretended not to notice. After my master passed the Heart Sutra to me, I resolved to first heal the white fox before entering seclusion for cultivation. The Shoyang mountain grows millennium-old Solomon's seal renowned for healing wounds and prolonging life. Though vicious beasts guard its surroundings, fellow disciples who returned from herb gathering described the demonic beast as a giant earth dragon that lurks underground, ambushing and devouring unsuspecting herb seekers. Though it sounded perilous, I took heart knowing my peers had returned safely with the herbs. Surely I could do the same. The white fox resisted joining my quest, thrashing violently until I swaddled its flailing limbs in my robe and carried it onward. Immobilized, the fox glared at me with utter indignation. Just as I successfully found the Solomon's seal on Shoyang Mountain, the demon beast appeared right on cue. After dodging several attacks, I finally realized the beast wasn't targeting me. Its true prey was the white fox cradled in my arms. 3. Remembering how previous herb gatherers returned unharmed while their spirit beasts all perished here, the truth struck me: these monsters feast on magical creatures, not humans. Looking down at the fox's tightly shut eyes, I understood his violent reaction when hearing our destination. He thought I was using him as bait. I tightened my embrace around the white fox and whispered, "I won't feed you to that demon beast." The fox regarded me with wary suspicion. The ravenous demon beast grew increasingly frenzied in its attacks, coiling around me in an attempt to swallow us both, until my blade pierced through its palate into its skull. As the creature collapsed with a thunderous crash, I flung the fox from my arms, only to be pinned beneath the monster's lifeless bulk. The demonic beast weighed a ton, crushing me beneath it. My legs must be broken. I couldn't crawl free, and my vision was fading fast. Before blacking out, I saw the white fox digging up golden root with its paws, devouring it ravenously, completely indifferent to my paralyzed state. When I came to, I was still pinned under the beast. A piece of golden root lay within reach, but the white fox was nowhere in sight. My legs throbbed with pain as I gnawed on the golden root, desperately plotting my escape. Just as I finished eating, 2 more pieces of Solomon's seal fell from above. Looking up, I saw the white fox perched atop the demon beast's head. I gasped in surprise. "You didn't leave." The white fox leaped to my side and nudged the Solomon's seal toward my hand, urging me to eat. The Solomon's seal worked wonders. The pain in my leg faded almost instantly. With great effort, I crawled out from under the demon beast's corpse and scooped the white fox into my arms, noticing his wounds had healed except for a pinky-length stub of a severed tail. I couldn't resist reaching out to touch it, wondering if the tail would ever regrow. The fox startled upright, ears flattened against its head as it stared at me with an indecipherable noise. Only then did I realize I'd accidentally touched his rear, and immediately began apologizing profusely. After returning to the sect, I visited Mount Shuyang to gather herbs. Fellow disciples who'd lost their spirit beasts grew uneasy when they saw me not only bring back the white fox but also heal its injuries. I pretended complete ignorance, claiming I'd merely fought off a demonic beast attack, though not without difficulty, and successfully slain it. I carefully avoided mentioning the beast's consumption of spirit creatures. Storm scoffed dismissively, "What's the point of healing it? Still just a tailless fox." Though only a few days had passed. Storm appeared noticeably paler and weaker. I couldn't be bothered with her, but as I passed by, the white fox in my arms suddenly pounced, leaving bloody scratches across her face with its claws. I yanked the fox back into my arms and spoke before Storm could complain. "Junior sister, this fox has always been proud. Why provoke him for no reason?" Furious, Storm demanded Cyrus teach me and the fox a lesson. When Cyrus approached me, I instinctively stepped back, a reaction that only fueled Storm's smug satisfaction. I warned Cyrus to back off, and the white fox in my arms seemed to sense my tension, letting out a threatening growl. Cyrus simply smirked, placing his hand on my wrist, his fingers tracing suggestive circles on my skin. His fingers were ice cold, slithering across my skin like a serpent's tongue. Shuddering, I tried to wrench free, but he held firm until Storm intervened, pulling Cyrus away while demanding sharply, "What the hell are you doing?" Cyrus stared at me like a snake eyeing its prey. "Senior sister's skills are profound. I wonder when I might have the honor of sparring with you." As Storm dragged Cyrus away, she shot me a glare over her shoulder, a silent warning not to compete with her for Cyrus's attention. While I was still staring at Cyrus's retreating figure, my arm was suddenly nudged. Looking down, I saw the white fox squinting up at me. He growled twice, but I couldn't understand, my mind preoccupied with Cyrus's ambiguous attitude. I found my gaze drifting back to his silhouette. A sharp pain shot through my arm as the white fox unexpectedly bared its claws at me. I couldn't understand what had provoked it, but guessed it might still be upset about Storm mocking its bald tail. Trying to comfort it, I said, "You'll recover for sure. Even if the tail doesn't grow back, you'll still be the most beautiful fox in our sect, ." Only then did it show a somewhat satisfied expression and retract its sharp claws. Now that the white fox had grown strong enough to avoid premature death, I began practicing my Heart Sutra. The white fox showed no interest in cultivation, content to simply curl up beside me day and night without causing any disturbance. After 6 months of secluded practice with the 13-layered Heart Sutra, I'd only reached the second layer. Feeling disheartened, my master reassured me that even he would likely still be on the first layer after half a year of cultivation. I hadn't seen Storm in all these months. When she burst in unexpectedly, she looked a full decade older. She came searching for Cyrus. I asked why she thought her spirit beast would be at my place. Storm remained silent. After failing to find Cyrus here, she didn't leave immediately. She mocked me for stubbornly practicing mental cultivation despite having spirit beasts to rely on. I told her cultivation is meant to strengthen oneself. If one isn't willing to endure hardship, they shouldn't have chosen this path to begin with. But Storm took it as me mocking her lack of dedication and flew into a rage. I detected anxiety in her words. She was genuinely worried about keeping up with Cyrus's rapid progress. After Storm left, I resumed my training. Something coiled around my waist. When I opened my eyes, the white fox was gone. Instead, Cyrus had wrapped his serpent tail around me. Cyrus stared at me and demanded, "I'm clearly stronger than that fox, why won't you choose me?" For a moment, I thought Cyrus had reincarnated with memories of his past life. He released me, shifting into human form the instant his feet touched the ground. Leaning closer, he whispered, "Our cultivation levels are perfectly matched, why refuse me? Dual cultivation with me would bring you more pleasure and progress than your solitary meditation." It dawned on me then, Cyrus retained no past life memories. He sought me out solely to exploit my power for his own advancement. Flashes of those dreadful memories from my past life surfaced, and I hastily pushed him away, mistaking my reaction for shyness. Cyrus pressed on with his honeyed words, "That useless fox is nothing compared to me. Soon I'll become the one and only obsidian dragon across all realms. You've already formed a spiritual pact with my junior sister, whatever form you take. You'll always be her bonded beast. That has nothing to do with me." Cyrus chuckled, "Your junior sister has mediocre talent and slacks off in cultivation, always clinging to me instead. She's utterly unworthy. In this entire sect, you're the only one fit to stand by my side." His words about Storm were true, but truth often stings. My gaze shifted to the doorway where Storm had unexpectedly returned. Her face was deathly pale, with reddish bite marks visible on her neck. In our past life, Cyrus forced me to cultivate relentlessly for his draconic ascension, then deceived me into dual cultivation to drain my power. Now he's doing the same to Storm. Though Storm clearly heard Cyrus' words, she didn't blame him, instead accusing me of seducing her spirit beast. 5. Her commotion drew a crowd of fellow disciples. Senior sister, back when we were choosing spirit beasts, you rejected Cyrus for being just a little black snake. Now that I've finally helped him achieve human form through great effort, you come to steal him away. How utterly shameless. Seeing Cyrus in my chamber late at night while Storm wept pitifully, all the disciples condemned my misconduct. Tongue-tied with no defense, I watched as Cyrus, the instigator of this whole affair, remained utterly unperturbed, even suggesting, since everyone already thinks this way, why don't we just go with the flow and form our cultivation pact? Cyrus's words were cut short by a clear, aristocratic male voice. Wait. The blue-robed youth pushed past his fellow disciples blocking the doorway and stepped before me. I studied the handsome man before me with puzzlement, his expressive eyes bright and alert. Feeling an odd sense of familiarity, Storm demanded, "Who are you? Why are you at our sect?" The man shot her a glance. "Want me to claw your face to shreds again?" That disdainful look, that mocking tone, I knew exactly who he was in an instant. Storm covered her face. "You're that fox. You actually mastered human form." The white fox introduced himself as Griffin, eyeing Cyrus up and down. "Sneaking in to steal someone's lover at midnight. How shameless. Nor told me I'm the most handsome fox in our entire sect. With me around, she'd never look your way." Cyrus scoffed. "You're the only spirit beast fox in their whole sect. I wonder who you're comparing yourself to when you claim to be the most handsome." Griffin shot me a glance, and I felt a pang of guilt. I'd just been saying whatever would please him in the moment, though we hardly had any chemistry. Even I knew better than to undermine Griffin at a time like this. I told Cyrus, "To me, he's the most handsome. We've no interest in comparing with others, but matching up against you, that's child's play." Griffin's expression softened with smug satisfaction as he glared at Cyrus. "Hear that? Nora and I are doing just fine. Stop meddling. I was only gone for a moment, and here you are trying to steal her away." The senior disciples finally caught on. "Junior sister, the spirit beast belongs to you. Keep him in check." Sneaking into our senior sister's chamber in the dead of night. This is outrageous. Storm glanced guiltily at Cyrus. Her every move was clearly under his complete control. Cyrus shifted his gaze from Griffin to me and muttered, "Wasting your cultivation to help such trash achieve transformation and form a bond. What a disgrace." Only Griffin, and I heard his words. Griffin was so furious he nearly threw a punch, but I stopped him. After Cyrus and Storm left, the rest of our sect brothers dispersed as well. Griffin remained seething with anger and warned me never to speak to Cyrus again, better yet, not even look his way. I gave a nonchalant nod when Griffin suddenly leaned in, whispering, "If dual cultivation could enhance your powers, I wouldn't mind making the sacrifice." No sooner had I kicked Cyrus out than Griffin pulled the same stunt. My face darkened instantly as I shoved him out without hearing his excuses. Locked outside, Griffin whined pitifully, "I was just joking, Lenore, open the door already." Ignoring him, I listened to his muffled pleas until the corridor finally fell silent. The next morning, I found Griffin in his true form lying at my doorstep. Though he could shapeshift into human form, his tail remained bare and patchy. Noticing my gaze fixed on his tail, Griffin immediately leaned against the doorframe to block my view. "It'll grow back soon," he muttered with visible embarrassment. After a pause, he added, "Once my tail fully recovers, my true form will definitely look more majestic than your junior sister's dingy little snake." I couldn't fathom why he'd developed this rivalry with Cyrus, but paid it no mind. Instead, I simply told him I'd be entering seclusion for cultivation training. Griffin asked what he should do, so I told him to go wherever he pleased and do as he wished. 6. I borrowed my master's cave for secluded cultivation, planning to stay at least a year or two, but was summoned back after barely 2 months. With a grave expression, my master informed me Griffin had committed a terrible offense. His newly accepted female disciple was found brutally murdered in the mountains, and the entire sect believes Griffin to be the killer. Before meeting Griffin, I first went to examine the deceased. Her body bore several rope-like bruise marks, with only small puncture wounds on the neck and wrists but no other visible injuries. My master said sorrowfully, "This was the new disciple I took in during your seclusion, brilliant and full of promise. Who could have foreseen such a tragedy?" Griffin was confined in a cramped cage, too small to assume human form, his once snow-white fur now filthy and matted. The moment he saw me, he let out a pitiful whimper. "Nor, I didn't kill anyone. She was already dead when I found her. I didn't even know her. Why would I kill her?" Before I could speak, Storm snapped at him. "You murdered our junior sister to steal her cultivation, and now you dare deny it, as a spirit beast. You've advanced so quickly without training under our senior sister, you must have resorted to dark arts." Storm then pointed behind Griffin. His once severed tail had miraculously regrown into a full, fluffy tail in such a short time. Griffin tucked his tail beneath him, pleading with puppy dog eyes for me to believe him. "I'm your spirit beast," he whimpered. "I'd never lie to you." Seeing his pitiful look, I couldn't help but reach out and pat his head. Griffin immediately nuzzled against my hand like an affectionate pet. My master interrupted. "This spirit beast refused to acknowledge any master before and never trained with you, forcing you to start practicing the Heart Sutra. Now this fawning behavior is just to manipulate your sympathy." After my master spoke, I felt Griffin tense up beneath my hand. Just as I was about to defend him, Storm spoke up. "Cyrus saw him right beside Junior Sister's corpse. Of all the spirit beasts in our sect, he's the only one who's been separated from you without supervision. If he didn't kill her, who did?" All the evidence seems to point to Griffin, but right now I suspect someone else more. I turned to the silent Cyrus and asked, "So you only saw Griffin near the body, but didn't actually witness the murder? If you'd found the corpse before him, couldn't Griffin just as easily accuse you?" Cyrus narrowed his eyes at me, while Storm stepped forward in his defense. "Senior Sister, your spirit beast clearly killed Master's new disciple. Why are you dragging everyone else into this?" Seeing them about to leave, I grabbed Cyrus by the arm. "As a witness, you're not going anywhere." Cyrus didn't shake off my hand, but Storm shouted instead, "Senior Sister, are you trying to shield your own spirit beast, or steal mine?" Griffin raised his eyes at the words, his glare ambiguous, whether directed at me or Cyrus. I kept my grip on Cyrus, sensing a bizarre energy coursing through him. Storm's accusation fit perfectly. Such rapid cultivation could only mean forbidden methods. Releasing Cyrus, I addressed our master. "Griffin is my spirit beast, my responsibility. Entrust him to me, and I swear justice for our fallen junior sister." After everyone left, I turned to Griffin and saw him burying his head between his front paws. I reassured him, "I know you're not the killer. I'll find a way to clear your name." He lifted his head and demanded, "Why are you practicing the Heart Sutra? That's for cultivators without spirit beasts. Do you think I'm not good enough to assist your training?" Here he was, facing life or death accusations, yet fretting over such trivial matters. I explained, "When you scratched me during the bonding ritual, I understood you didn't want this. I told you, once you're healed, we can dissolve the contract and you're free to leave. If we're ending this eventually, what's wrong with me practicing the Heart Sutra in advance?" Griffin actually got angry at this. "You'd abandon me over one scratch. If you plan to discard me all along, why risk injury hunting demons for my medicine?" "Linor, you're putting words in my mouth. I never mentioned dissolving the contract. Or is this about your junior sister's black serpent?" His temper flared as he spoke, tail bristling while shooing me away without hearing my side. Though Griffin's furious with me, I still need to find a way to save him, while surveilling Storm and Cyrus. I dared not get too close to their chamber. When I heard Storm's screams and pleas for mercy, I nearly fled. Soon those cries turned into moans before fading into silence. Cyrus did the same to me once, luring me with promises of mutual cultivation benefits that only ever served his own advancement. By the time I realized the deception, Cyrus had far surpassed my cultivation. He threatened to harvest our entire sect for his practice if I ever revealed the truth or broke our pact. My cultivation surpasses Storm's. In our past life, Cyrus only needed to refine me to successfully ascend as a dragon, unlike this lifetime where he's draining others' cultivation. If he truly wishes to hasten his draconic ascension, he'll never stop at this. I've been eavesdropping for days but found no leads whatsoever. 2 horns have already sprouted on Cyrus' head, and Storm keeps gloating about it to me. I warned her that Cyrus's transformation was fueled by others' cultivation and flesh. She should be wary of him. Storm didn't believe me, thinking I was just jealous instead. 7. It wasn't until our master scolded her for her severe decline in cultivation that she finally listened, somewhat. Our master cautioned her, when the power gap between a cultivator and their spirit beast grows too wide, the cultivator risks backlash. If she couldn't match Cyrus's growth, breaking the contract would be wiser. Storm protested unwillingly. "Master, I'll work hard to catch up with Cyrus. Besides, he'd never let anything happen to me." Seeing her face glow with trust and tenderness at Cyrus' mention, I asked in bewilderment, "Why do you trust him so completely?" Storm locked eyes with me. "Because I've witnessed the thunderous wrath he unleashes when avenging those he cares about." Then I understood. In our past life, after Storm killed me, Cyrus slaughtered her and countless innocents in retribution. To Storm, this was proof of Cyrus valuing me, and in this life, as his bonded partner, Cyrus would cherish her just as he had cherished me in the past. Ridiculous. He simply disregards human life. Killing comes effortlessly to him. This was vengeance, pure and simple. Where's the proof of his regard? And what good would his favor even bring you? I pointed at Storm's throat. The only one he truly values is himself. To him, you're just a tool for cultivation. Naturally, Storm didn't believe a word I said. I faintly heard a gust of wind and looked up just in time to see the massive form of Cyrus soaring overhead. Though not yet fully transformed into a dragon, his horns and claws already bore draconic features. Storm gazed obsessively at Cyrus. "You're only saying this to drive a wedge between me and Cyrus. You're just jealous that my spirit beast is nearing dragonhood while you have nothing." I had no heart to persuade Storm further, only wondering how Cyrus's cultivation could progress so rapidly. Griffin was still furious. The moment he saw me, he immediately turned his back and started whipping the cage bars with his tail, but when he heard me mention going down the mountain, his anger vanished. He looked at me anxiously. "Why are you leaving? Are you really trying to abandon me, Lenore? I've been obediently staying in this tiny cage just to spare you trouble, otherwise I would've." Without waiting for Griffin to finish complaining, I reached into the cage to stroke his head. Griffin arched his back, torn between resistance and affection. "What are you doing? Don't think a few pats will make me forgive your irresponsibility. I went down the mountain to find evidence to clear your name. Stay put and wait for my return." Griffin finally softened his stance, nuzzling my hand of his own accord. I left the sect and spent over half a month traveling before returning. I reported my findings to the master. I visited the nearest sects as planned, just as I suspected. Several deaths occurred recently with identical markings to junior sister's wounds, proof it's the same perpetrator. Here are signed letters from the respective sect leaders and elders corroborating my claims. When I handed the letters to my master, I noticed he didn't open them immediately. His expression clouded with concern. I pressed on. "Master, 2 murders occurred while Griffin was imprisoned. This proves his innocence. Could we release him now?" My master sighed. "Griffin collapsed inexplicably after you left the mountain. Since he's innocent, take him home and tend to him." I never expected this. When I saw Griffin, he lay motionless in the cage, his fur dull and lifeless. I cradled him in my arms. "His breathing steady with no visible injuries," the master said. "We've examined him but can't determine the cause. Since you've formed a pact with him, try to rouse him." I laid Griffin on the bed and placed my hand against his forehead. Closing my eyes, I sensed a faint thread connecting us in the darkness. As my focus deepened, this bond grew more tangible and distinct in my consciousness. It suddenly struck me that continuing like this would only strengthen the bond between Griffin and me, making our eventual separation more painful and difficult. As I hesitated, the invisible thread in my consciousness suddenly tensed, as if someone at the other end had given it a sharp tug. I turned to Griffin and saw he'd already opened his eyes. Perched on the bed with his tail curled around himself, he deliberately adopted a haughty tone. "Since you're willing to maintain our contract voluntarily, don't you dare mention dissolving it again." When I asked Griffin why he'd fainted, I noticed him avoiding eye contact. "How should I know?" he muttered. "Probably from being cooped up in that tiny cage. My body couldn't adjust." His excuse sounded fishy. Just as I pressed for answers, he cut me off. "Our pact is unbreakable. Don't even think about ditching me. That's downright irresponsible." Griffin's eyes gleamed like polished amber, and suddenly I felt like a fly caught in his web. I opened my mouth to question him, but Griffin suddenly arched his back, gaze locked warily on something behind me. I turned around just as a plume of black smoke came rushing toward me. As I collapsed, all I saw was Griffin leaping in front of me, morphing into human form midair to catch me before we hit the ground. When I came to, the first person I saw was Storm, of all people. Her eyes were vacant, cheeks sunken, hair brittle. The exposed skin showed massive bruises in varying shades. I barely recognized her. To my surprise, Storm looked genuinely delighted when she saw me wake. She grabbed my hand urgently and pleaded, "Senior sister, I'll give Cyrus back to you. Will you form a cultivation pact with him?" I shook off Storm's hand. "Have you lost your mind?" Before Storm could explain, she caught sight of Cyrus approaching. Panic flashed across her face as she stammered, "I am still persuading senior sister. She'll definitely agree." Useless. Cyrus's gaze softened with patient tenderness when he looked at me. The moment I heard him call my name in that familiar deep voice, I knew. "Cyrus, I'll never form a pact with you again." He seized my hand and pulled me back to him. "You've returned too, haven't you?" I remember everything now. Cyrus claimed he'd avenged me by killing Storm in our past life, yet here he was, wanting to renew our bond. We're the perfect match. Both Storm and that fox are far too weak. Had Storm not beaten us to it this time, we'd have already formed our bond, and I'd have ascended as a dragon by now. I won't let Cyrus use me as a tool again. He's still trying to avoid an outright confrontation, desperately clinging to that gentle, forgiving facade. Storm, however, grew desperate, dragging Griffin out in that obsidian cage and outright threatening me to break our current pact and bond with Cyrus instead, or he'd kill Griffin. Griffin's fur was matted with blood, utterly battered. Only the faint rise and fall of his breathing proved he still clung to life. Once Griffin dies, Cyrus can forcibly bind with me against my will. Whether I refuse or agree won't change the outcome of Cyrus forcing me. The only difference is whether Griffin's life gets spared. I consented. Closing my eyes, I found a slender thread within the mental realm where consciousness meets void, the very tether binding Griffin and me. I'd long prepared to sever our bond, yet now I couldn't bring myself to cut it. When my fingers touched that thread, it seemed to sense my intention vibrating like a lute string with a tremor that sent instant pain through my skull. Storm pinned me down, hissing, "This is your fault, senior sister. Had you explained the bonding ritual properly, I'd never have taken Cyrus from you. Storm, you're blaming others for your own mistakes, 2 lifetimes wasted and you've learned nothing." Griffin awoke with a pained gasp from his unconscious state, realizing my actions. He cried out in desperate alarm, "Lenore, you're trying to abandon me again." Griffin thrashed desperately in the cage. Just as my pain became unbearable, an impatient Cyrus choked my neck with one hand while pressing the other against my forehead. A spectral hand materialized in my consciousness and severed the connection with a single tug. The headache vanished instantly, leaving only a hollow void behind. Simultaneously, I heard what sounded like bones snapping. I turned to face Griffin. His golden eyes locked intensely on me. His body began swelling inside the cage, bursting the iron bars apart as shattered fragments shot outward like arrows. Cyrus grabbed my shoulder and leaped from the room just as the entire house collapsed in an instant. Through the swirling dust, a white blur lashed toward Cyrus. As Cyrus dodged away, the shadow coiled around my waist and dragged me back into the swirling dust. I landed softly on the ground, hearing Storm's moans. She lay nearby with a dark steel shard embedded in her abdomen. Storm begged for my help. "Senior sister, I was wrong. I shouldn't have competed with you for Cyrus. Please save me." Her plea was cut short as terror flashed across her face. Following her gaze upward, I saw a pair of enormous golden eyes gleaming through the white void. Griffin's colossal form, larger than any house, loomed over me as 9 magnificent tails swirled behind him. Legend spoke of the 9-tailed divine fox in Qingqiu. Now witnessing Griffin's true form, I understood those tails were real. Storm's expression shifted from shock to regret before erupting into a bitter scream. "You're Qingqiu's 9-tailed fox. Had I known, I would have chosen you. Tended your wounds properly. Why do I keep making the wrong choice lifetime after lifetime? Why?" Ignoring the distraught Storm, Griffin looked down at me. Before he could speak, Cyrus' draconic tail suddenly lashed out. This time it was Griffin who carried me to safety in his jaws. After setting me down, he charged toward Cyrus midair. 9, dragon and fox, black against white, clashed amidst the clouds. Moments later, Cyrus plummeted from the sky and crashed heavily onto the ground. His dragon horns were broken, making him look less like a true dragon and more like a mere serpent, drenched in blood. Cyrus swept his gaze around before skimming low across the ground toward Storm, his fangs catching her garment as he flung her upward. Storm barely had time to let out a shriek before Cyrus swallowed her whole. Even after devouring Storm, Cyrus remained unsatisfied, his eyes locked onto me. "Nor, you sacrificed much to help me ascend as a dragon in your past life. Aid me once more in this life, and I shall never forget you." I wouldn't trade my life for his lingering thoughts. I turned and ran toward Griffin, taking cover behind him. Realizing he was no match for Griffin, Cyrus fled in the opposite direction, only for Griffin's multiple tails to suddenly elongate and ensnare him. All I heard was Cyrus' agonized roar before his body was gruesomely torn apart by the constricting tails. I found Storm's corpse covered in filth, her eyes wide open in eternal unrest. After living through 2 lifetimes, she still met this bitter end. Griffin flicked blood off his tail with a proud expression, as if waiting for me to speak. Seeing my master arrive with fellow disciples, I told him, "Your transformation succeeded and the contract is void. You're free now." Griffin stared at me with unspoken words, then let out a resounding cry before soaring into the clouds and vanishing from sight. After my superficial wounds healed, my master instructed me to choose a new spirit beast for bonding. He repeatedly assured me that this time he'd help me select a powerful yet gentle-tempered spirit companion. On the bonding ceremony day, besides me, the newly enrolled junior disciples would also choose their spirit beasts. As the senior disciple, my master granted me first selection rights. My gaze swept past the spirit cats and cranes before settling on a small white pup. His round, hopeful eyes locked onto mine, silently willing me to choose him. The master said, "Nor, fate seems to have brought you in this white hound together. Why not take him?" After a moment's thought, I pointed to a molting songbird beside the pup. "Master, I'd rather have this poor lark. She's injured and looks so pitiful." I noticed the puppy first lift startled, then turned to growl at my master. After a brief pause, my master immediately said, "Haven't you always favored fluffy spirit beasts? When did your preferences change? Can't you see you share a special bond with this white hound?" Despite my master's persistent recommendation of the white hound, I firmly chose the colorful finch, already cradling her in my hands to reassure, "Don't worry, I'll definitely heal you and make you beautiful again." I glanced at the white hound, who was nibbling its tail tip while gazing at me longingly, and added, "After all, I have plenty of experience raising spirit beasts with scruffy tails." The colorful finch was now staring nervously at the white hound, trembling in my palm without daring to chirp. Just as I stubbornly prepared to form a pact with the finch, the white hound suddenly transformed into a massive white fox. Griffin glared at me. "Lenore, you've got peculiar tastes, got a thing for tailless creatures." Should have gnawed my own tail off before coming to find you." Setting the finch down, I asked why he'd returned. Griffin put on a tough act. "I never agreed to sever our contract." He materialized in human form, glaring at me with arrogant defiance as if demanding, "Why aren't you choosing me already?" But as my silence lingered, nervousness crept into his demeanor, his gaze now carrying the subtle plea of a fishing hook's gentle tug. I tilted my head and commanded, "Change back." Griffin froze. "Change back? I do prefer my spirit beast Fluffy." Griffin's expression shifted from surprise to amusement. "Where are your eyes? You'd rather admire fur than this dashing figure of mine." Despite his grumbling, he transformed into a snow-white fox and leaped into my arms. As Griffin wrapped his fluffy white tail around my wrist, I felt the bond between us rekindle. Story 2, my cousin and I bound the apocalyptic transmigration system at the same time. In my previous life, I chose the genre of stockpiling goods and farming in the apocalypse, while she chose the genre of the innocent and pampered heroine. I managed to have enough food and clothing and made a fortune in the apocalypse by farming. However, she was abandoned by the powerful figure and thrown into the zombie horde, and was surrounded and eaten by zombies until she died. Given a chance to live again, she chose the genre of stockpiling goods and farming in the apocalypse, one step ahead of me. But the reason why I can farm well is that I'm an agriculture major. 1. When the apocalypse arrived, my aunt was visiting our home with my cousin. I have to say, a woman still needs to take good care of herself. Look at your Gabriella. Why is she learning farming? Her little face is sallow. Which man would like that? My aunt was wearing a mink coat, high heels, and a delicate and heavy makeup, she said to my mother with a look of contempt. After a while, she began to brag about her daughter Mila, who was majoring in dance. She had a slender figure, and her little face was as beautiful as a lotus flower emerging from the water. Many wealthy yen masters were chasing after her. Only by taking good care of oneself and marrying a rich man can this be a woman's career. Neither my mother nor I paid attention to her. I was watering the garlic sprouts I had planted on the balcony, and my mother was making soup for me in the kitchen. However, Mila, who was highly praised by my aunt, didn't have her usual look of pride on her face. She bit her lips tightly and looked nervous, seeing that no one was paying attention to her. My aunt was extremely angry but didn't dare to flare up. She was about to leave with my cousin. "Mila, what are you still standing there for? Hurry up and leave." Seeing that Mila was standing still, my aunt urged. Mila forced a smile. "Mom, you go first, I'll be back later." I was puzzled. In the previous life, she looked down on my mother and me and immediately went downstairs without thinking. Why was she acting so strangely this time? My aunt had just gone downstairs. After a while, she came running back upstairs screaming and locked the door tightly. "Ghosts, ghosts." I went up to the window on the balcony and took a look. The zombies were limping downstairs with their twisted postures, covered in blood and unknown stains, looking extremely terrifying. Sure enough, just like in the previous life, the apocalypse had arrived. I silently counted in my heart. 3, 2, 1, a mechanical female voice sounded. "Congratulations to the two hosts for obtaining the apocalyptic transmigration system. Please choose from the following 2 books." I choose the genre of stockpiling goods and farming in the apocalypse. Before I could open my mouth, and even before the mechanical female voice could continue the introduction, Mila answered first. My heart skipped a beat. Sure enough, she was also reborn, and she took the lead in choosing the genre of stockpiling goods and farming in the apocalypse that I had chosen in my previous life. 2. In the previous life, when the apocalypse suddenly broke out, the 4 of us were trapped in my 80 square meter small house. Just when we were at a loss, the system suddenly appeared and told Mila and me that we could bind 2 apocalyptic novels at the same time and obtain the luck of the heroines in the novels. Mila rushed to bind the novel about the innocent and pampered heroine, because she heard the system say that by binding this book, her appearance would become even more beautiful and charming, making the powerful figure fall in love with her at first sight, and then it would be all about mindless pampering and sweetness. This coincided with Mila's original intention of trying to get together with a wealthy young master. I didn't care, even if she didn't snatch it. My choice would still be the genre of stockpiling goods and farming in the apocalypse. I wasn't interested in revolving around a man, seeing that I calmly accepted the genre of stockpiling goods and farming in the apocalypse. Mila gloated and said, "Sure enough, you're suitable for farming for a lifetime." Not long after, a team of survivors looking for supplies knocked on my door. At first, they didn't want to accept more survivors. After hearing that I had the ability to accelerate planting, they accepted me and were willing to take my mother and me away. However, Mila was delicate and weak, and she also had a difficult mother to serve. The teammates didn't want to take her with them. Helplessly, the halo of the heroine of the innocent and pampered genre that Mila had took effect. The powerful figure leading the team, Thomas, fell in love with her at first sight, despite the opposition of his teammates. He firmly demanded that Mila be taken along. In the previous life, relying on the luck of the heroine of the innocent and pampered genre, Mila did have a good life for a while. Mila had no combat ability, was arrogant in nature, and was picky about food. She wouldn't even touch ordinary food. She only drank unopened bottled mineral water. When encountering zombies, she could only scream and cry, and she treated her teammates like slaves. The teammates were all dissatisfied with her, but because she was Thomas's girlfriend, they didn't dare to show any objection. Although Thomas doted on Mila, he wasn't mindlessly doting. Before long, he asked Mila to pick up a knife and start killing low-level zombies on the grounds that she should have the ability to protect herself. To be honest, Thomas was considerate enough. Instead of making Mila face powerful zombies from the beginning like others, he first asked her to exercise her body and then try to kill the zombies that he had cut off their limbs and had no mobility. It was a step-by-step process. Mila was unwilling to comply. She chose the system of the innocent and pampered heroine just to avoid facing these terrifying monsters. She just wanted to hide behind a man, get whatever she wanted, and be doted on obediently, so she refused in every possible way and wouldn't agree no matter what. But Thomas was also a real person. Mila kept crying and making a scene, and he got annoyed after being troubled by her many times. Before long, he completely abandoned Mila, without Thomas's protection. The people who had been offended by Mila before immediately began to bully her unscrupulously. They poured cold water on her in winter, asked her to eat leftovers, and used her as a punching bag to beat her. In order to survive, Mila could only choose to pick up a weapon and fight against the zombies, but she was weak in strength and timid. She couldn't even kill the lowest level zombies, therefore, she could only have one meal a day and still couldn't get enough to eat. She was sent to keep watch at night and was always sleepy and hungry. Mila suffered a great deal. Before long, she was tortured until she was skin and bones. During an outdoor mission, her teammates who didn't like her pushed her into the zombie horde, and she was eaten alive by the zombies. In contrast, because I chose the genre of farming, when planting crops, I had a built-in acceleration buff. I could stably and quickly provide high-quality vegetables and fruits for the team. And I was treated as the beloved of the team and protected. I not only didn't have to do anything, but I was also given an apartment with the subsidy from the base. I had meat for all 3 meals a day. If I needed anything, I just had to say it, and someone would bring it to me immediately. All the men that Mila had tried to flirt with came to me and competed to recruit me. In the previous life, almost every time I quickly looked up from the plant observation records, I could see Mila looking disheveled, staring at me with jealous eyes. I always knew that she hated me, but I didn't know the reason why she hated me. Clearly, the path was chosen by herself, and I also gave her the opportunity to make the first choice. Although I didn't like her, I had never bullied her. 3. Why do they let me go and kill the zombies while they don't let you? They hate me so much but take such good care of you. It must be all because you have the luck of the genre of stockpiling goods and farming in the apocalypse, Mila said with deep malice in her eyes, but a proud smile on her lips. This time, it's me who will be protected by the teammates. You can also taste the feeling of being bitten to death by zombies alive. She's crazy, I cursed in my heart. Since Mila had bound the genre of stockpiling goods and farming in the apocalypse in advance, I could only bind the remaining genre of the innocent and pampered heroine. Looking at myself in the mirror, my originally ordinary eyebrows and eyes suddenly became alluring. I seemed to be completely transformed, changing from an ordinary person into a stunning beauty with every step. I didn't say anything, I just silently put on the thick black-rimmed glasses. Although the genre of the innocent and pampered heroine was rather useless, relying on myself, I wasn't unable to survive. My mother looked at me worriedly. Gabriella, are you feeling unwell? I shook my head and gave her a sweet smile. Don't worry, Mom, I'm fine. When my aunt saw how beautiful I became after binding the genre of the innocent and pampered heroine, her eyes widened immediately. She grabbed Mila and complained, "Why didn't you choose this, choosing that farming thing? We're supposed to live the life of a rich lady." What's the point of farming? Mila pushed my aunt's hand away impatiently. My aunt's instigation played a big part in her choice of the genre of the innocent and pampered heroine in the previous life. Mom, can you look further ahead? This is the apocalypse. Being good-looking can't fill your stomach. With this ability, we can easily grow a bunch of fruits and vegetables. We can choose any good man in the whole apocalypse. I was shocked. No way. You regard the ability to accelerate farming as a capital to attract men. You really know how to play. My mother pulled me to the kitchen to have soup. She quickly accepted the information about the arrival of the apocalypse. She was naturally a person with extremely stable emotions. I searched out all the knives I could find in the kitchen. While sharpening the knives with a whetstone, I asked my mother, Mom, what do you think now that the apocalypse has arrived? What else can I think? My mother handed me the soup bowl. You found all these. We'll take them. We'll just live well at all times. I smiled and gave her a thumbs up. No wonder you're my mom. Your consciousness is really high. I grew up in a single-parent family. When my father passed away, my mother said the same thing. After that, she silently supported the whole family. Although it was tough, she never complained of being tired. I inherited her character. I'm calm when facing things. Neither humble nor arrogant. While we were chatting, the doorbell suddenly rang. Without asking, I knew who it was. Mila clearly knew too, so she couldn't wait to open the door. There are people in this house. Let's go. The next house. Hurry up and collect the supplies and leave quickly. The man with a cigarette in his mouth looked at Mila, who opened the door and said regretfully. The big and burly man in front of me was my teammate from the previous life. How could Mila let them go? She quickly cleared her throat and said, Big brother, are you still taking in people? The big and burly man looked around the situation in the house and found that there were only 4 women who seemed to have no combat power. He immediately lost interest and roared, No, do you think this is a bus stopping your house? Get lost and don't block our way. With the ability to accelerate crop planting, Mila immediately put on the airs of a talented person and snorted. I have the ability to make plants grow quickly. It will be your loss if you don't take me with you. Really? A slender woman walked up from behind the crowd. She looked at Mila with shining eyes. Fresh fruits and vegetables were so rare in the apocalypse. If Mila could really accelerate the ripening of plants, she would be like a golden nugget. This woman was the wife of the big and burly man. Although she didn't have great strength, she had a good mind. Mila took out the seeds she had taken from my balcony and pinched them in her hand. Sure enough, the seeds sprouted rapidly, and a small green shoot emerged from her hand. I sighed in regret. If it wasn't planted in the soil quickly, the seedling would wither soon. She actually dared to waste one of my seeds. Didn't she know that every grain of food comes from hard work? Mila raised her head proudly and said, See, you have soil boxes in the car, as long as it's the seeds I plant. The growth speed of any fruit can be doubled. Allison immediately held Mila's hand affectionately, and the other teammates also warmly greeted Mila. Mila was surrounded and flattered by them, and she received a completely different treatment from that in the previous life. She cast a provocative look at me, as if she wanted to see me sad or angry, but I might have disappointed her because I had no expression on my face. Mila didn't know that I actually didn't like these teammates. And I also hated the feeling of being surrounded by them, because they were all short-sighted and ungrateful people, but Mila didn't know this because she had never had close communication and understanding with them. Only I knew that they were like poisonous snakes. Once they saw their prey, they would wrap around it tightly until they devoured all the value of the prey. Mila kept looking at me, waiting for me to grovel and beg them to take me with them, just like she did in the previous life. Then she could continue to humiliate me. She thought she had hidden her thoughts well, but in fact, they were all on her face and could be guessed easily. For me, whether I go with them or not doesn't make much difference. Perhaps parting ways at this place is also a good choice. Seeing that I didn't react, Mila couldn't help but say, I have a good relationship with my cousin. Let's take my cousin with us. Everyone's eyes turned to me following her words. Of course. I wasn't stupid enough to think that Mila was thinking of me. She was just afraid that she wouldn't be able to see me suffer the same torture she had experienced in the previous life with her own eyes. After sizing me up from head to toe, everyone showed a look of disgust. No one likes someone who looks like they will hold others back. I certainly understood this. Mila sneered. You have nothing but a pretty face. What are you being so high and mighty for? Hearing her say this, I smiled in my heart. I didn't expect her memory to be quite good. I had said the exact same thing to her in the previous life. In fact, she had asked me the question, why do they like you? In the previous life, I was trimming the branches of a fruit tree with scissors at that time. Without thinking, I said, because you have nothing but a pretty face, and they don't need your face. In fact, I had said other things after that, and every sentence was more important than this one. But she seemed to have only remembered this sentence. I suddenly understood, so she thought I was mocking her at that time. 5. Seeing that Mila's attitude towards me wasn't very good, everyone immediately didn't have to scruple Mila's feelings anymore and began to discuss me unscrupulously. So short, with small arms and legs, you're not even enough to fill the gaps between the zombie's teeth. A young man with yellow hair walked out from the crowd. He looked at me up and down with a lecherous look and said with a lascivious smile, "This girl is attractive, call us something nice and make a few of us happy tonight. It's not that we can't take you with us, but your mother can't come." Everyone burst into laughter. My mother clenched my hand. I felt the warmth of her palm and knew that she was angry. I gently squeezed her hand to show that I was okay, facing the laughter. I didn't say anything and didn't do anything. It's really not worth getting into a conflict with them now, perhaps thinking that bullying me was too boring, or that I was too oblivious. The young man with yellow hair gave my shoulder a hard shove. My head slammed into the wall with a thud. I felt a sharp pain on the top of my head. I covered the wound, and physiological tears welled up in my eyes from the pain. "Take her with us," a deep male voice came from behind the crowd. Thomas, the male protagonist of the novel about the innocent and pampered heroine, made his appearance. "You're here to collect supplies, not to bully people. If I see you bullying others again, get out of the team," Thomas said sternly to the young man with yellow hair. The young man with yellow hair was too scared to say anything and shrank his neck back into the team. Thomas reached out and touched my head, saying softly, "Are you okay?" I felt my eyelids twitching. In the previous life, he saved Mila in this way, and Mila believed it was true, thinking that Thomas was the Prince Charming who would shield her from the wind and rain in her life. Although I didn't say it, I noticed from the very beginning that Thomas had been observing from behind and just pretended to have arrived. He just wanted to appear in the guise of a savior. I suddenly had an epiphany. The novel about the innocent and pampered heroine, yes. It's about pampering, but pampering doesn't mean loving you, in this life. Since the one who bound the novel about the innocent and pampered heroine became me, the target of Thomas's favor naturally became me. I guess for Thomas, whether it was Mila in the previous life or me now, we were just little things that suited his taste and he couldn't resist taking away. I dodged his hand and said, "I'm fine, if we're going, then let's go." Thomas seemed surprised that his trick didn't work. He raised his eyebrows and told everyone to pack up and get in the car, since Thomas was the leader and he said he would take me with them. No one else dared to say anything. I picked up the longest kitchen knife and held it in my hand. I also gave my mother one and followed everyone downstairs. "The teammates who were so nice to you in the previous life are now mocking you. You must be feeling really bad, right?" Mila chased after me and stared at me intently. She couldn't believe that I still wouldn't feel bad after receiving such an embarrassing treatment. "I don't care," I shrugged and stepped downstairs. Just as I said before, they were never good people. They were just fence-sitter, people who would shift their stance according to the situation. The fence-sitters assigned the seats in the car park downstairs. There were clearly 2 seats left, but they blatantly pretended to be blind and sneered at me, saying, "Oops, there are no seats left. Please take your mother and sit in the trunk. It's better than nothing, isn't it?" This scene was the same as in the previous life. However, in the previous life, my aunt didn't want to, and Mila even less so. She pestered Thomas with a lot of coquetry and easily managed to get extra seats arranged. The trunk was filled with various supplies. It would take 3 or 4 hours to drive to the survivor base. There was no doubt that staying in the trunk with these supplies for 3 hours would definitely be very uncomfortable. Thomas stood aside, seemingly waiting for me to yield to him. "Fine, I'll sit there," but I was very optimistic, or rather, I wasn't someone who cared about the environment in the first place. My mother and I huddled in the trunk. My mother touched my face and said, "You've suffered." I smiled and said, "This isn't really suffering." 6. After 3 hours of bumpy driving, the car finally slowly stopped in front of the survivor base surrounded by villages. Thomas seemed to have connections. He said something to the person at the gate, and that person immediately respectfully led us to a bungalow. The bungalow was spacious, with several rooms inside, and there was also an unplowed piece of land next to it. It was still the familiar place, but my identity this time was completely different. I felt a bit emotional. My mother and I were assigned to a small utility room, which was still filled with the previous owner's items. My mother and I cleaned it up for a long time. Fortunately, there was a folding bed in it. We spread out the quilt we found and could barely sleep on it. When I was throwing out the useless things, I saw Thomas standing aside. He was very tall, like a clothes hanger, lazily leaning against the wall and looking at me with interest. I ignored him, and he followed behind me, watching me as I was busy. This man is really difficult to deal with. Could it be that my status in his heart has changed from a little toy to a somewhat disobedient little toy now? I had a terrible headache. This novel about the innocent and pampered heroine was like some stinky solid thing stuck to me, and Thomas was a dog. There are many beautiful women, but I'm different from them, don't have any ideas about me, I couldn't help but say coldly when the tall figure blocked my way back to the room. Oh, what's the difference between you and them? Thomas asked with a smile, with a deep look of disapproval on his face. I looked up at him with firm eyes and said, I'm an agriculture major, compared with farming, Mila can't compare with me. Thomas pondered for a while and then said, then let the two of you have a competition. The time limit is 1 month. Whoever grows the crops better will be in charge of the farmland cultivation here. However, if you lose, you have to obediently listen to me. At that time, I won't be as easy to talk to as I am now. Thomas was smiling, but I could hear the displeasure and threat in his voice. During this 1 month, you must go out and kill zombies with your teammates during the day. I don't care about you at other times. Killing zombies during the day and taking care of the crops at night, and taking good care of the crops. It sounded very difficult, but it wasn't impossible to achieve. I readily agreed. Thomas also kept his word. He asked someone to mark out 2 small areas that were far apart on the adjacent land, built a simple fence with wood around them, and pointed them out to Mila and me respectively. Without the blessing of the genre of stockpiling goods and farming in the apocalypse, you still want to compete with me. Mila was like hearing a joke. Gabriella, why do you have to bring shame upon yourself? After seeing Mila's ability, the other people in the team gathered around her, trying to gain some benefits from her. Naturally, they looked down on me who had no special ability. Just you, with your delicate appearance, you can farm, don't waste the seeds. I ignored their sarcastic remarks. I silently tidied up the weeds on the piece of land allocated to me, and then went to find a hoe to turn over the soil. Mila looked down on me haughtily, turned around, and left with her followers. Mila must think that she can win, and win easily. But she has thought everything too simply. The luck of the genre of stockpiling goods and farming in the apocalypse can only control the growth speed of crops, but not the quality of the plants. The base needs fresh fruits and vegetables, not just those that grow fast but of poor quality. Mila majored in dance. She has never even watered the flowers at home by herself. She hardly knows anything about how to take care of these crops. Maybe in her eyes, it's as simple as sowing the seeds and then watering them every day. For me, who has been working hard in the field every day for my graduation thesis, it would be great if it were really that simple. 7. Thomas gave Mila and me each a pack of fruit radish seeds. I let out a sigh of relief. There are also different varieties of fruit radishes, and the seeds he gave us happened to be the kind that could mature in about a month. If it were other crops, it would be difficult for them to mature within a month. Without the ability to accelerate growth, I naturally couldn't compare with Mila in terms of production speed, and the result of the competition wouldn't be intuitive. However, I didn't rush to sow the seeds. Mila, on the other hand, planted them as soon as she got them. The way she planted them was also very simple and crude. She didn't turn over the soil, she just dug a hole directly, threw the seeds in, then covered the soil, and gently touched the soil with her hand. The plants then sprouted from the soil. Cousin, why are you standing there? Could it be that you think you can't compare with me and just give up? Mila sneered when she saw me holding the seeds and not moving. I ignored her. The more you pay attention to this person, the more excited she gets. It's better to treat her like air. During the day, I followed my teammates to collect supplies outside the base early in the morning. Although I lost a lot of weight after binding the novel about the innocent and pampered heroine, I still had my strength. I swung the knife to kill zombies, 1 with each stroke, quickly and accurately, without any hesitation. It's hilarious. After all, I've been carrying a hoe and a shovel in the field every day. How could my strength be small? However, my teammates still ostracized me. Either they asked me to scout the way, or they asked me to walk alone on other separate paths. For me, I was actually happy to have some peace. As I walked, I picked up some things that looked like they could be used as fertilizer, such as rotten fruits, good stuff, broken eggshells without the cores, worth picking up, and zombie fragments. Well, it could barely be used. My mother was in poor health, but she was good at cooking. She was recruited by the base to cook communal meals. Although this job wasn't easy, it was safe. When I returned to the base, I crushed all the things and mixed them together, sprinkled them on the land as fertilizer, and then sowed the seeds, dragging my tired body back to the room. As soon as I entered, I saw my aunt pulling my mother, with a haughty expression on her face. Since your Gabriella has become beautiful with that thing, she should hurry up and find a good man, otherwise, it would be a waste of that pretty face. What's the point of farming? Don't always think about being a country bumpkin. My mother had just finished working in the base kitchen. Her hands were red from holding the large spoon. My aunt, relying on Mila's ability, had been treated as an honored guest these days and was living a good life, looking energetic. This could be considered her special triggered plot. Every time she felt that she was living a good life, She would come to meet my mother. My aunt married a wealthy boss with some spare money because of her somewhat good looks. She benefited from this theory of appearance and liked to promote it everywhere. She had a competitive personality. When she was young, she compared her appearance with my mother's. When she grew up, she compared who married better. When she got old, she compared their daughters. She thought she was living a better life than my mother. So she especially liked to come to my mother every month at a fixed time, put on a superior expression, and show off to my mother in every possible way. She was so diligent in visiting relatives that even the neighbors knew her. Mila learned from her mother. From childhood to adulthood, she had to outdo me in everything. Was it meaningful? My mother and I both thought it wasn't, but they never got tired of it. A few days later, I had just exhausted myself killing several zombies and was lying on the ground gasping for breath. Suddenly, I found several plants with strange appearances in the adjacent field. They were small purple serrated seedlings. They weren't noticeable at first, but the weeds next to them were growing particularly lush. I walked around and found that there were no other factors affecting the uneven growth of the weeds. Then I dug up these seedlings that I had never seen before. I carefully planted these seedlings near my radish seedlings. The next day, I was immediately delighted to find that the growth speed of my radish seedlings was a bit faster than usual. Could it be that planting them together with this strange plant would make the growth speed of the crops faster? I was both delighted and regretful. I was delighted that I had found a way to replace the genre of stockpiling goods and farming in the apocalypse. I was regretful that I had only found it after the apocalypse. If I had found this grass before the apocalypse, I could have written my thesis for another 10 years with it, from undergraduate to doctoral studies. Just like that, during the day, I went out to kill zombies, and at night, I returned to my room to take care of my group of radish seedlings. That small bud with a strange appearance was particularly delicate. After killing 3 of its siblings and making 2 large notebooks of observation records, I finally figured out the rules for growing it. If I could keep it alive according to the rules, then I would win, and I would win without a doubt. Looking at it growing vigorously, I let out a long sigh of relief. This time, I finally won. I hadn't seen Mila much recently. She hardly came to the field. She just touched the plants with her hand every night when she came back to make them grow quickly. A few days after arriving, my aunt urged her to get to know more young talents with status in the base. She also thought the same way, so, relying on her planting ability, she really got to know several men with status in the base and was busy shuttling between them. She only spent 5 minutes every night touching the radishes to make them grow a little taller. The leaves of her radishes had already grown very tall, twice as tall as the leaves of radishes planted normally. The long radish leaves made the radishes that were exposed also look long. I silently covered the radishes that were exposed from the soil with a layer of soil, before giving everyone a surprise. My big radishes couldn't be discovered. Is it necessary? Thomas asked me when he saw me coming out to fetch water and water the land in the middle of the night. What's necessary or not? I didn't want to pay attention to him, so I perfunctorily replied, I mean, is it necessary for you to work so hard? Thomas showed an incredulous expression. I knew that he had been observing me these days, but I hadn't looked at him directly. During this period, it wasn't that he hadn't tried to talk to me, but he was even less important to me than a radish in the field. Every time he tried to talk to me, he failed. Clearly, as long as you yield to me, act coquettishly, and be with me, I can give you everything you want. Aren't you working so hard just to have a better life in the apocalypse these days? I had been getting up at 5 in the morning and going to bed at 1 or 2 in the morning. The excessive fatigue every day made me lose a lot of weight. If you asked me if I wasn't suffering, I was, very much so, but I knew that this was only temporary. As long as I got through this period and proved to them that I had value different from ordinary people, I could get rid of this kind of life. I originally wanted to see how long you could endure. I didn't expect you to really be able to endure it. You've endured it for more than half a month like this. Thomas took out a cigarette and lit it, saying slowly, Hey, I'm not joking. Be with me. It's not just for fun. I'll take you to meet my parents. We'll get married. After we get married, I'll recommend you to the base, and the treatment will definitely be much better than it is now. I was shocked. This person actually regarded marrying him as a reward. Why are you so greedy? I'll farm for you and I also have to marry you. Open your mouth and let me see if you have teeth. Otherwise, why are you so shameless? Thomas was probably treated like this for the first time in his life. Suddenly, his face turned cold with anger, and the pressure around him was so intense that it seemed as if it could crush people to death. But it couldn't crush me. I'm a non-Newtonian fluid. Fine, fine. Thomas was so angry that he laughed. He took a step forward. Enveloping me in his tall shadow, Mila came to see me today. She said her radishes are already ripe and asked me to end the competition tomorrow. It's only the 18th day now. Without those sprouts that can accelerate ripening, my radishes would only be half-grown at this moment. However, now I have those sprouts that can accelerate ripening. Hey, you didn't expect it, did you? My radishes are also ready. Unlike what Thomas had expected, that I would hang my head in despair, cry bitterly, and beg him to extend the competition, I casually gave him the middle finger and said, "Then see you tomorrow." 9. The result of the competition was, of course, within my expectations, but it surprised everyone else. Although Mila's ability could make plants grow quickly, it couldn't make the plants grow rapidly independently without a proper nutrient environment for absorption. Therefore, the tireless growth would only lead to the hollowness of the crops, continuously sending the nutrients that should have been accumulated in the fruits to the growth of the branches and leaves. As a result, when Mila's radishes were dug out, they were only small. Not believing in this outcome, she dug up all the radishes in the field. All these radishes had long radish leaves, but the radishes underneath were pitifully small. Taking a bite, they were neither crispy nor sweet, and tasted as insipid as chewing wax. I certainly knew what Mila was thinking. She had never farmed before and thought that if the radish leaves were long, the radishes underneath would be big. In contrast, the radish leaves of my radishes were of moderate length. When I pulled out one radish, it was not only big but also had a fresh green and beautiful appearance. It was sweet and slightly spicy, with a rich taste. The effect of the ripening accelerating grass allowed me to win this turnaround battle brilliantly and completely. Mila went crazy. She rushed up and grabbed me tightly. "Why, clearly, you planted them like this in the previous life. Why are the radishes I planted different from yours? Why?" I pushed her away and said word by word, "Do you think I had a good life in the previous life just because of the luck of the genre of stockpiling goods and farming in the apocalypse?" She only saw that when I reached out, the plants would grow obediently, but she didn't see that I soaked in the field day and night, doing research, making records, and developing new varieties. She only saw the base's importance attached to me and the bright and glamorous life I led, but she couldn't see the equal efforts and contributions I made behind the scenes to deserve the treatment. Looking at her eyes as lifeless as ashes, I said softly, "Don't forget, I'm an agriculture major." 10. Now the status between me and her has been reversed again. Those teammates who had crowded around her yesterday stood by my side today. They not only bowed and scraped to apologize to me but even turned around and started to bully Mila to show their favor to me. My talent was discovered by the base staff who came for inspection. They allocated a larger house to me and asked me to guide the development of the base's agriculture. I moved to the new house with my mother. The new house was far from here. The 3 meals a day were sumptuous. I only needed to stay in the greenhouse every day to do the cultivation work. The staff treated me very well, except for Thomas's occasional harassment. I was quite satisfied with my current life. As for Mila, I didn't plan to have any contact with her. I wouldn't deliberately humiliate her, nor would I deliberately pay attention to her. If I hadn't come back to get something I had forgotten half a month later, I might never have met Mila again in this life. Mila seemed to have returned to the days after she was abandoned by Thomas in the previous life. This time, she didn't have the luck of the genre of the innocent and pampered heroine, and she couldn't use the ability of the genre of stockpiling goods and farming in the apocalypse. The men she had hooked up with before never saw her again after they found she was useless, and her former friends also turned against her and bullied her every day. Naturally, my aunt's situation became worse following Mila's. After living like this for a short time, she couldn't stand it anymore and ran away from the base with an old man. I wasn't surprised by this. After all, in the previous life, she also eloped with someone, leaving her biological daughter behind. As for the result of the elopement, I guessed it wouldn't be better than Mila's situation. Mila was unkempt every day, doing hard work but eating less than anyone else. When I saw her again, she had become so thin that she was unrecognizable, with a dull look in her eyes. She was kneeling on the ground, her clothes were dirty and torn, and her body was covered with scars from battles and beatings. The woman who had affectionately held her arm before now had a fierce expression and slapped her hard. "Why are you so slow at washing the clothes?" When the woman saw me, she immediately put on a flattering look and came over to try to get on my good side. I turned around and left. The person sent by the base to protect me opened the car door for me. I got in the car and my eyes subconsciously looked outside. I met Mila's cold and gloomy gaze, which was full of hatred and unwillingness. She saw me, and naturally, she also saw my clean and bright clothes and my energetic mental state. Compared with her current appearance like a beggar, we were worlds apart. I knew that she must hate me to the core now. The car door closed, completely blocking her view. Looking at her gaze like that, I suddenly had a premonition that she would come to find me again. 11. My premonition wasn't wrong. After several months of peaceful life, Just when I thought Mila had given up on coming to find me, she suddenly appeared outside the greenhouse. At this time, I was patiently explaining to a newbie the method of cultivating that ripening accelerating grass. Mila, with her hair disheveled, stood behind me like a ghost. The newbie let out a scream in fright, because Mila was holding a shiny kitchen knife in her hand. Her pale face was so thin that her cheeks were deeply sunken in, and she looked like a madwoman. Why, Mila's eyes were red with tears streaming down her face in big drops. Why, clearly, I chose the genre of stockpiling goods and farming in the apocalypse in advance in this life. Why am I still in such a situation? I'm so unwilling. The newbie was so frightened that she didn't know what to do. I didn't have much of a reaction. I patted her hand and told her to go and find someone. The newbie hesitated for a while. When Mila wasn't paying attention to her, she sneaked out to call for help. Mila stared at me intently. Gabriella, you must be very proud, right? Why have you lived so well in both lives? And I've been so miserable. It's all your fault. It's all because of you. Why can you find the grass that can make plants grow quickly even after losing the luck of the genre of stockpiling goods and farming in the apocalypse? Why are you so lucky? She approached me step by step with the knife raised. I didn't dodge. Now she hadn't lost all her rationality. If I ran away, it would only stimulate her and make her even crazier. Gabriella, let's go to hell together. No one will have a good time. She laughed miserably. Mila, I said calmly. Do you remember what I said when you asked me in the previous life? Mila was stunned. She seemed not to expect that I would talk about this with her. When you look in the mirror, you can only see your own face, but when you lower your head, you can see your hands. I waved my hands, which had a thick layer of calluses on them. Everything I have was obtained with these hands. It was the same in the previous life, and it's the same in this life. You actually know very well, right? Even if there wasn't this ripening accelerating grass and my radishes weren't ripe, they were still better than yours. This is something that anyone with eyes can see, so it was only a matter of time before I won. Looking at the emaciated Mila, I just said softly, whether it was in the previous life or this life, your initial choice wasn't wrong, but what have you done for your choice? Mila and I grew up together. I knew her too well. She had received the misleading education from my aunt since she was a child. What she pursued was just making a choice and then having a carefree life. For example, marrying a rich man and then relying on his money and power to live a comfortable life. Mila, do you really understand what you want? The one who caused your tragic ending is yourself. Why are you comparing yourself with me? Do you really think you're happy just because you're better off than me? Happiness? Mila was stunned. It seemed that she was seriously thinking about this question for the first time. Her chapped and pale lips were trembling and muttering, if you still have the courage now, then leave this base, leave all the people here who know you and go to a place where no one knows you. You still have the ability to plant. As long as you're willing to learn and endure hardship, you have the opportunity to start anew. I rubbed my temples wearily, with a clear clang sound. The bright kitchen knife slipped out of Mila's hand and fell into the soil, getting covered in dust. Mila suddenly covered her face, and her body slowly knelt to the ground. Then, she broke down and burst into heart-wrenching sobs. But it's too late, but it's too late. 12. Mila was taken away by the bodyguards who came, like a piece of wood. Soon, I heard them say that Mila somehow got some medicine and put it in the pot while cooking. Those teammates who had bullied her on a daily basis were now lying in the base hospital. Although there was no news yet, it was estimated that they were all dead. After poisoning her teammates, she came to find me with a kitchen knife. I didn't know what punishment the base would give her, but I knew that she couldn't escape death. But I guessed that for her now, death was a small matter. Instead, the deep regret that gnawed at her bones tormented her even more painfully. I heard that Mila went to find you with a knife. I was really shocked. Thomas circled around me curiously. Did she suddenly have a change of heart, or were you able to overpower her with your bare hands? I was observing the growth of the crops in each field one by one and then doing my daily routine of making records. Seeing that I ignored him, Thomas chattered behind me, trying to find topics to talk about. Didn't you say before that you don't like cigarettes? I quit smoking, for you. I was so annoyed by his chatter that my pen slipped, and the words in the observation diary went all over the place. I couldn't stand it anymore and looked up. You're so ridiculous. What does my not liking cigarettes have to do with your quitting smoking? Don't tie us together. The only benefit your quitting smoking brings to me is that I inhale less secondhand smoke. Thomas was taken aback, and his eyes began to redden slightly. He turned his head away. Well, then I quit smoking for myself. I reached out and gave him the middle finger. Realizing what I did, I awkwardly changed it to a thumbs up. Good, for your health. A mechanical female voice sounded. Congratulations to the two hosts for obtaining the apocalyptic transmigration system. As for giving some respect to your 3 consecutive questions, I used the same format as you. I won't consider it in this life, won't consider it in the next life, and won't consider it in the life after that either. Thomas seemed to be stuck in the greenhouse and couldn't be driven away. Then you don't plan to get married? I waved my hand. I'm going to marry this piece of land. Thomas rolled up his sleeves regardless and walked into the field to start working. He said shamelessly, the three of us living a good life together is better than anything else. My face darkened. Get lost, you mistress wannabe. When it was time to get off work, I finished all my work, changed out of my work clothes, and prepared to go home. Thomas silently followed behind me. These days, he had always taken it for granted that he would send me home, but my home was very close to where I worked, and I didn't see the point of his behavior. When we were parting, Thomas suddenly smiled with a sense of relief. There was an unerasable look of reluctance between his eyebrows and eyes. Sure enough. As you said, you're different from those women. Forget it. I won't bother you anymore in the future. Just leave. Why do you still have to talk nonsense? This man really knows how to add drama to himself. I was in an especially good mood because I was about to get rid of Thomas, this loathsome person. I sneered and said, I'm different from those women, but you're just like those men. 13. When I got home, it was already dark, the lights were on at home, and my mother came out of the kitchen while untying her apron. Gabriella, you're back. The meal is just cooked and still warm. Mom, you're the best. I pounced on her and hugged her neck. The aroma of the soup, the warm and cozy light, and the smile on my mother's face. The scene at this moment completely overlapped with that in the previous life. I don't know why, but I felt a warmth in my eyes, and teardrops fell on my mother's fluffy sweater, blooming like a small flower. I thought that the life I wanted was now within my grasp.